of weird. Can you guys see me? All right, is this a good, kind of weird, huh?
And the results from this psychology study, she does this and this, now you have to calculate.
I've been mispronouncing your first name this whole time.
Everyone does. It's
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you are ready to learn and craft and grow and just have a wonderful time. Thank you for coming to the Iowa Files. I'm Gail Brubaker. I'm the Executive Director of the West Des Moines Historical Society. I want to thank the fantastic staff at the West Des Moines Library for making this possible and for supplying us with all of the craft supplies today. This program, Daryl is just up counting how many of you are here. That is Daryl Eshte. He is the library director, and he hauled all the tables and chairs out too. So thank you, Daryl. So the Iowa Files is a free monthly public education program, which is supplied or made possible by the West Des Moines Historical Society member and donors and EMC Insurance, Polk County supervisors, and a lot of other donors. So thank you for coming here today. We are very fortunate. This is one of the very first workshops we've done as part of the Iowa Files. So Kyna Clemons is the creator of the Children of the Sun classical African-centered homeschool curriculum and co-founder of the Children of the Sun classical international homeschool community. She and her husband, Baba G, have home educated their children together in the Washington area for over 25 years. Mama Kyna, as she is affectionately called in the community, is also the owner and lead textile quilt artist at Kyna Quilt Studio, where she teaches the art of quilting and the rich history of African and African-American quilting traditions. As you can see, vibrant colors, geometrical patterns, and indigenous African crafts set Mama Kyna's quilting brand apart. Her signature Black Panther quilts, a favorite amongst both youth and adults, are used in classrooms around the world to foster Black student achievement throughout the U.S., Cuba, Bermuda, Belize, Brazil, Tanzania, and Ghana. She is an Iowa native. I met her about 1.5 years ago when she loaned us one of her amazing quilts for display at the Jordan House Museum. She has spent her childhood years in the Great Lakes area of Iowa, Missouri, and Wisconsin before moving to the East Coast to attend college in the mid-1980s. I would like you all to give a warm welcome to our speaker today, Kyna Clemons.
Lord have mercy. I just got to hurry up. Day's coming. Day's coming. Where's that boy? Where's that boy? Boy, come on. Come on here. You got to hurry up. You got to hurry up. Boy. Come on now. Come on now. Lord have mercy. They coming to get you, boy. You see these rocks? Boy, you see these rocks? You take these rocks, boy, and you go all the way to Canada. You go all the way to Canada, boy, and you don't stop, and you go and you follow the North Star, boy. You take these rocks, boy, and you get on out of here. Now go, they coming after you, boy. Good afternoon. I am Mama Kyna Clemons, and I am so happy to be here. How'd you like that dramatic presentation? As is my custom, because I'm a drama queen, I always like to start my presentations off with a dramatic presentation. Does anybody recognize that scene? That was a very profound scene from a very famous book and movie. Did anybody recognize that? Close. It's from the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. Let's see, I'm gonna get here we go. So the scene that I did is from, it's a dramatic presentation from the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. And as I go further along in my presentation today, you will find the significance of the rocks. It will become apparent. I want to thank Gail for that warm welcome. As is my custom, I greet you, as I said, with this amazing presentation to give you some food for thought. But I just want to say, Gail, the work that you do here is amazing. Thank you so much. As she mentioned, I am a passionate textile quilt artist. And my late husband, Baba G, and I homeschooled our 7 children and my stepson together in the nation's capital for over 20 years. And you're going to hear more about my heartbeats later. Our family folklore is a story of passion, love, redemption, reconciliation, and remembrance. Here featured are 2 of my quilts, Village Life and Steps to Freedom. And I'll do later a little trunk show. As Gail mentioned, my quilt Underground Railroad was on display at the West Des Moines Historical Society. I was so honored. I don't know if any of you were able to see it on display there. There's a story to this quilt, as there is always a story to a quilt. But this quilt made its way back to me after many, many years. And I'm so happy to have it back in my possession. And it's a traditional patchwork quilt done in a railroad. Are there any quilters in the house? I forgot to ask. Okay, who can tell me the pattern? Does anybody recognize it? Absolutely. It's a railroad. And I call it Underground Railroad. And there's all kind of hidden symbolism in here in the fabrics from Africa. We're going to talk a little bit more about the textiles from Africa, too. So thank you, Gail, for hosting that, my quilt. I am a coal miner's granddaughter. Would you believe that? I had a hard time believing that. Did you know that? My cousin is here, Dennis. We grew up together. Welcome, Dennis. But I'm a coal miner's granddaughter, and I'm here today to share a little piece of my rocks. This afternoon, I'm going to share with you my story of how I use West Des Moines Historical Society resources and that of other local nonprofits to trace my family genealogy through the quilting tradition to the historic coal mining town of Buxton, Iowa. I will also share with you my new research by 2 African-American male authors, which adds to our limited knowledge of the controversial theory if and how quilts may have been used as secret messaging on the Underground Railroad to guide escaping Africans to freedom in the North and Canada. Now, I recently discovered my ancestral heritage, and I was so delighted to learn that my family genealogy can be traced back to the Akan people of Ghana, West Africa. And it's ironic because all of the fabric that I've worked with all of my life comes from Ghana, West Africa. So there are no accidents in God's universe, as my Jegna says. It is not a mistake that God has given me this passion to work with the fabrics and the textiles from Africa, which we have an import and export business. And how you like my outfit? It was made in our factories in Ghana by the amazing Anna Taiko. And I want to give her a shout out. But we'll talk more about that and how we're using that to equip our children with skills so that they can prosper in a fast-changing world today. As is the custom of my people in Ghana, I would like to ask permission from the elder if I may speak. And I probably think my mom, my beautiful mother who accompanied me all the way here she came from North Carolina, I came from the Washington, D.C. area, is probably the eldest. Is there anybody here who's older than my beautiful mama? I believe my mama's 78. Mother, can you stand up? Isn't she pretty? Come on, stand up, mama. My mother is a native Iowan, and she's 79, 70. How old are you, mother? 78 years old. Mother, may I have permission? She's going to say no. May I have permission to speak? Yes, you may. Thank you. Isn't she beautiful? Thank you, mama. Okay, so as I mentioned, I want to briefly acknowledge the outstanding work of the West Des Moines Historical Society. Executive Director Gail, your museum stellar programming culminating with the Iowa Files, the Friends of Iowa, and all of the myriad of educational webinars and YouTube videos and on-site museum visits and tours that you do. You do an amazing job of educating, including me, people of all race and nationalities, both locally and nationally, about Iowa's great history, and particularly the contribution of Iowa's African Americans, the progressive African Americans who had so much to add to the development of this great state, including my ancestors from Buxton and my ancestors who came here from Sedalia, Missouri. And how many of you recognize my friends right here? Charlotte Piles, and of course, the statesman. We honor him. He's such an amazing, amazing patriarch, conductor of the Underground Railroad, James Jordan himself. So we like to say in the African tradition, do you have my back? So the ancestors have my back. So I have no fear. I know that I'm protected. So now I want to take some time to honor this queen. How many of you have seen Rachel Chase or you know of her work? She was a guest here. Gail knows her. Is she amazing? I've never met her, but I want to say thank you. I want to acknowledge the important work of this romance novel writer and now historian and expert subject matter on Buxton, the amazing Rachel Chase. Her books, Lost Buxton, Images in America, in Buxton, and Creating the Black Utopia, Buxton, Iowa, provide a wealth of information on the residents and the life of my relatives there, which you're going to learn more about later. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about my work on the Eastern Shore, which is just having major impacts in the lives of our children and the community. Real quick, like Gail and like the work that you guys are doing here, we are involved with the nonprofit organizations in the preservation of historic sites on the Underground Railroad. And as you know, Maryland was a major route on the eastern route of the Underground Railroad, going along the Eastern Shore all the way up to Cambridge, Maryland. And we're doing some amazing program in Cambridge, Maryland, which is the birthplace of Harriet Tubman, who you'll hear me refer to as our mentor. We are about to, some organizations that I'm affiliated with, nonprofit, we're about to build $1 million complex to revitalize her home, which they're suffering. There's a lot of economic depression. And so that's a good thing. And Oakley Cabin, I have been working with Oakley Cabin, Gail. This is a historic site in Maryland. Maryland was one of the first states to recognize the Emancipation Proclamation 1 year before it was actually promulgated. And Oakley Cabin is a historic roadside cabin where the first families during emancipation lived. And so I do programming there. We do all kind of fun activities, and it's just an amazing opportunity. They've commissioned me to do a freedom quilt. So 2023, November Emancipation Day, look for me. We'll be rolling out the Emancipation Day freedom quilt. That's me in the middle, dressed up in period costume, in case you don't know. And these are our amazing students on the left. This is our amazing Sankofa scholar, Aya. She's made a block here. You guys are going to be able to do this later. This is the Scraps of Africa Interactive Heritage Workshop quilt block. And on the right, the young girl was so enamored by this young girl's block that she decided to make one too. So they're going to be the centerpiece of the quilt. Ashe. And in the African tradition, we have a call and response. If I say Ashe, could you guys say I go? That way I just know you're listening. Ashe? I go. Thank you. Okay, I am proud to be a coal miner's granddaughter. Okay. All right. So let's see where we go from here. So that's the work. I mentioned the work that we're doing in Cambridge on the Eastern Shore. Every year, Adrian Holmes, who is the founder of Alpha Genesis Corporation, nonprofit development corporation, who is spearheading the development on the Eastern Shore, has the Day of Resilience, which is just amazing. I invite you to attend if you are on the Eastern Shore this year. And finally, Wisconsin. I spent most of my life in between Wisconsin, on the back of a bus going between Wisconsin and Iowa. And I have a family in Missouri. And so a lot of my work has been in Wisconsin, and I have discovered Wisconsin roles on the Underground Railroad, which they did not teach me in school. And why did I have to find this information out, at the age of 55? Talk about the miseducation. So this is what we seek to correct. Because here in my home state, the Milton House in Wisconsin is a major stop on the Underground Railroad. That's it. That's the Milton House. It's beautiful. It's I haven't been there. I hope to go one day. But if you see in the far right corner, that's the Milton House. And this was literally the family would harbor runaway slaves under the eyes of the townspeople. And it was a guest house. And it was just amazing the dedication that these people had. Now, what are you going to learn today? Okay? Nothing. No. You're going to learn a lot. If you listen, you're going to learn a lot. Okay? So you're going to learn the rich history of the African American quilting tradition, which we've already talked a little bit about that. Okay? I got to catch up with my slides. So you're going to learn a little bit about the rich history of the African American quilting tradition. Let me catch up with my slides. Okay. So you're also going to learn how African American quilting traditions were influenced by African textile practices. You are going to discover your family genealogy by tracing your family tree through several generations. By answering the question, how far back can you trace your family lineage? Remember that. We're going to come back to that. That's a key question. You're also going to learn how to use local and national resources to discover hidden clues about your family's heritage, cultural and political beliefs, history, and birthright. And finally, you will create a heritage quilt block conveying themes of power, strength, love, unity, and ancestral heritage. Here's an example of the hands-on interactive heritage quilt project. This is sorry, we didn't advance. Working two things at one time. I should just stick with the sewing machine. Okay, so the hands-on interactive heritage quilt project is fun. Everybody loves doing that. We have all the supplies that you need. If you're watching from home, you can have time to do this. You can go gather your supplies. It's very simple. You can use paper or cardboard or a piece of muslin fabric or any type of fabric as your background material. And you should gather some assorted fabric sticks, a glue stick, card stick, scissors, cowrie shells, and other adornments, and your imagination. Okay, so let's get down to business. I want to play a clip by one of the world's greatest Pan-African scholars, John Henry Clark, who gives us a definition of what history is. Let's hope it works. Okay, there we go. We just need to turn it up. Can you hear? Okay. Can't hear? I don't know if we can turn it up. We can't. Okay, which is the words are up there. So you can just follow along. Now I don't know if I'll get the video back.
Themselves on the map of human geography. History tells of people where they have been, what they have been, where they are, what they are. Most important, history tells of people where they still must go, what they still must be. The relationship of history to the people is the same as the relationship of a mother to her child.
That's some deep African thought for you to consider. History is a clock that people use to tell their political and cultural time of day. It is also a compass that people use to find themselves on the map of human geography. History tells of people where they are and what they are. Most important, History tells a people where they still must go and what they still must be. The relationship between history and a people is the same as a relationship of a mother to her child. Those are the words of our great Pan-African scholar, John Henry Clark, father of Pan-Africanism. To the right, you see Dr. Sheikh Ante Diop and Asa Hilliard, who are Pan-African scholars and pillars in the community of Pan-African scholars and deep African thought. Ashe. I'll go. I may. Okay, I am proud to be a coal miner's daughter. Who made that song? I'm a coal miner's daughter. Okay, Loretta Lynn, thank you. I am a coal miner's daughter. Okay, so I'm working two things here. Okay, so where do we begin? Okay, typically we begin a story in the beginning, right? Okay, so unfortunately, in the case of African American people who are forcibly brought to this country against their will, our story begins in the middle. And so as an educator, we purposefully do not teach, if there are any educators in the room, you probably understand, we do not teach children, little brown and Black children, history starting from slavery, because our history actually goes back 5,000 years to the Nile River Valley when African people were great kings and queens. So we start 5,000 years before the birth of Christ, before the Common Era, on the historical timeline, because that's when African people were great builders of world civilizations, and we don't like to start from a point of the Middle Passage. Depicted in this slide are photos of my maternal matriarchs, my great-grandmother Allie Codwell, her daughter, my beloved grandmother Dincy Drain, and my great-grandfather Fred Caldwell. Recent DNA testing by African ancestry under the guidance of the brilliant scientist and historian Dr. Gina Page, as I indicated, revealed that our maternal ancestry, I bet you didn't know that, cousin, dates to the Akan people of West Africa, which are known for their beautiful fabrics, which may explain my passion and complete obsession with beautiful African fabrics. This is where I want to park for a minute. This is my paternal side of my family. Pictured here are my ancestors who were the early settlers of the coal mining town Buxton. William Sarge Jewett, who was born in 1884 and transitioned in 1965, is my paternal great-grandfather. He was the coal miner. That's why I am a coal miner's great-granddaughter. His two daughters, one of which was my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, Geraldine Jewett Williams, beautiful one with the side bun. I can never get the bun on the side like my grandmother. Is she beautiful? She's in the middle. And then my her sister, my great aunt, Catherine, who was probably one of the oldest living residents, early settlers of Buxton. I think she lived until 105. She was pretty old. I'll check my facts, but I know she was in her hundreds. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance like Jason to meet Grandma Catherine, but I feel like I know her. But I spent my childhood with my grandmother in Iowa. I do know my grandmother. I was raised by my stepfather, Henry Thomas. I'll tell more about that later, but this is my biological father, his mother, Geraldine Williams, and that's my dad. Again, this is a story of redemption. Wait till you hear how we reconnected. I reconnected with my 7 siblings last year. And that's my dad, Jerry Madison, in the right corner. And that's Jason, who did the documentary, the amazing documentary that you're getting ready to watch. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you with the history of Buxton. How many people know a little bit about Buxton? It's your first? Yeah, okay, it's amazing, isn't it? It's awesome. I'm so proud to be just an ancestor, that my ancestors were from Buxton. It just makes me so happy. But Buxton's lost history has been unearthed with the artifacts to remind us today to remind us of the heritage that was left there for us. And as I indicated, my half brother Jason produced a PBS documentary that we're going to watch a little clip of that tells the story of our grandfather Sarge, the coal miner, and my grandma. And so it's just an amazing work. So here's my siblings. I didn't meet some of them until last year when our father transitioned. He had 8 children, including me and my brother Randy. And we're now all very close. And so it's an amazing story, as I said, of reconciliation and redemption. And that's my sister Denise and my brother Neil and Jason. And she's a twin, my other sister. And can we start the video? I know I'm running out of time. I better hurry. Let's see if the video is going to work. Doesn't look like it's doing anything. Okay, well, we'll just keep going. So as I indicated, we did some testing to find out our paternal and maternal ancestry. And using the resources of the Western White Historical Society, African Ancestry, Ancestry.com, I have been able to find out, I've been able to trace my family genealogy now back 8 generations. That is something that has been unheard of for African American people. Am I right, sister? Yes. We have been unable to identify. And so I want to show you what I have uncovered. Are you ready? Because it's going to shock the heck out of you. You sure? You better fasten your seatbelt. All right. The reveal. Okay. This woman right here is Lucy Chapman. This is my great-great-grandmother. Isn't she beautiful? This is Sarge's mother, William Sarge, if I got it right. Somebody out there, family historian, correct me if I got it wrong. This is hot off the press. I just discovered all of this. This is amazing. Okay, bam. There we go. I want you to meditate on that slide for a minute. What do you see? Use your third eye, as we say in the African tradition. Use your third eye and see what you see. Okay, I don't have the photos. I had to use these photos of my great-grandmother, but in those boxes should be the matriarchs. So pictured here is William Jerome Sutton. He is my great-great-grandfather. He is the father of my great-grandmother, Eliza Louise Sutton, who is pictured up top. And his story is a story of love and commitment. He was born in the South, but he fought on the side of the Union. He had 3 mulatto children by my great-great-grandmother, Mary Sutton. And my trail stops at Mary Sutton. I haven't been able to find anything else about her, if she was an enslaved African, if he met her on the plantation. I know nothing about her except for the fact that he loved her dearly. And he loved my great-grandmother, Eliza Louise Sutton. And after emancipation, she was in St. Louis at the turn of the century as a seamstress. And so I was able to trace my family genealogy through the quilting tradition to that woman who is a seamstress, and my father's mother, Araminta, who is the same name as Harriet Tubman, Araminta, from Sedalia, Missouri. She was the quilter. And it didn't take a lot of work to find out. I simply asked my father, I interviewed him, and with his sharp mind, before he transitioned, he was 82, mother. It was just last year he transitioned. He told me my entire family genealogy, dates, names. He was a scribe for Grandma Gargle. He used to write for her. And he said, yes, Grandma Gargle was the quilter. I said, Dad, I've been looking for this information for 20 years. Thank you. So I never did find the quilter on Grandma Dempsey's side, on my maternal side. I still haven't found it. So I'm the first generation quilter. I'll accept that. So is that an amazing story? What do you think about that story? Come on, guys. That's amazing. Okay, Araminta Franklin, as I said, is the only quilter identified in my family ancestral research on my paternal side. She was born in 1881 in Missouri. This is the record of ancestry.com. Guys, ancestry.com got the algorithm. You can find out anything while you sleep. The computer works for you and finds your relatives. And when you wake up, you know your ancestry. It's worth every penny, every penny. That's me. Okay, so what are you guys going to do? You guys want to find out your family genealogy through the quilting tradition? So you start off with a basic question. Who's the quilter in your family? Simple as that. How many of you had quilts as a child? Did anybody make a quilt for you? That's how you start off. Here's a project, Discovering Family Genealogy through Family Quilting Traditions and Folklore. If you like, I can make these handouts available to you to use later. If you're an educator, these are great resources that you can use in the classroom. Here's some handouts. Again, I have some business cards. You can reach out to me. I can email them to you or get you the supplies you need. Here's your homework assignment. If you're interested in finding your family genealogy, this is what we tell our students. And when I do my workshops, we go on a fact-finding mission. How far back can you trace your family genealogy? Gail, how far back can you trace your family genealogy?
Some Huguenots in France.
How many generations?
That was the mid-1700s.
Okay, about 6.
1 or 2.
How about you, honey? Okay, you see the discrepancy? So how far, where does your trail stop? Okay.
Texas and obviously Oklahoma.
Okay, on the Great Frontier. I recommend you join ancestry.com and you do genetic testing with the brilliant Dr. Gina Page from AfricanAncestry.com that can tell you unequivocally, without a shadow of a doubt, which African tribe you come from, with that specificity. Okay, so, and then also you identify your ancestral lineages, relatives who were quilters, and then you interview them to find pictures and stories of the heritage quilt. Here's another project. How many people are familiar with Adinkra symbols? I don't think I have any on. You are? Yes, they are. Oh, I do. Does anybody recognize this one on my earrings? What is it? What is it?
Comb.
It's a special kind of comb. A duvet. It's an Afro comb, right? Believe it or not, Afro combs originated in Africa, and they were found as artifacts on the slave plantations here in North America, because the Afro comb originated 5,000 years ago in Africa. And I still try to wonder how they got it here, how they were able to get it here on the ships. And but the archaeologists have uncovered combs, Afro combs, and things like that on the plantation. So we're a symbolism. We're people who recognize patterns, like in this quilt that's falling off the wall. So do you guys see any patterns in this quilt? You see any themes? This is a crazy quilt, and this is a quilt that would have been created during the Reconstruction era. We're going to talk a little bit about it because I'm going to tell you now, because I'm going to probably run out of time. We have new research about whether quilts were used on the Underground Railroad as secret coding by 2 men, believe it or not, who have written books and claim that they are in possession of slave quilts, family slave quilts with the codes hidden in them. John Allen, we're going to talk about him, and I want to get to that because it's very important. And John Allen and his heritage quilts, and the Hartsfield Family Quilt Collection. So let's move along so we can get to that, okay? So you have some resources, you're equipped. We talked about the Sankofa. How many people know what the word Sankofa means in the Akan language? Represented by the bird, you know, sister? With the bird looking back? So in the Akan tradition, there is a word Sankofa, which is depicted here by a bird with an egg in its mouth looking back. This symbol is very important in the Akan tradition, as it signifies the process of going back to fetch the wisdom of the ancestors, to bring it forward and apply to modern day problems. How many of you know we need some wisdom from the ancestors today? So for the remaining part of the lecture, I'd like to talk about the controversial theory of whether quilts were used on the Underground Railroad to hide secret codes for escaping Africans heading north. I am not here to debate, but simply to add to the knowledge by bringing to light additional resources that have emerged, which adds valuable information to the discussion. First, let us briefly examine the history of the African American quilting tradition during the enslavement period and immediately following during Reconstruction. Textile traditions of African people are less documented than other folk art, such as music, dance, and speech. What is known can be traced to 4 civilizations of Central and West Africa, including the Mende-speaking people in the modern countries of Guinea, Mali, Senegal, and Burkina Faso, which my late husband, my king's ancestors originated from. Yoruba and Fan peoples in the Republic of Benin in Nigeria, the Ejakam people in Nigeria and Cameroon, and the Congo peoples of Zaire and Angola. As enslaved Africans and their textiles were traded throughout the Caribbean, Central America, and the southern United States, traditions of each region became intertwined. Here, we see influences of African beliefs in the importance and utility of protective charms to ward off evil, incorporated in the quilt design and pattern. Depicted on this slide are the amazing quilters of Geesbin, Alabama, the descendants of enslaved Africans who worked the cotton plantation as sharecroppers after emancipation. Their story is amazing. It is one of struggle, triumph, and perseverance, and we are blessed to have their quilts and their story today. The Underground Railroad, it is a metaphor. Let us briefly examine the new evidence purportedly supporting the theory. Did our African and African American ancestors embed secret codes in quilts to assist runaways on the Underground Railroad on their way to freedom in the North, Canada? Legend has it that there are symbols, signs, and coded messages in deep African thought in the quilt code. We do know in the African tradition that colors represent certain concepts. Red generally indicates danger. Blue indicates peace and calm. White, purity and goodness. Yellow symbolizes life. And black binds all the colors together. We have historical archaeological evidence where plantations have been excavated, and these beads have been found on the plantation, and more research needs to be done to uncover their deeper African meanings. How am I doing on time, Gail?
About a half hour.
Okay, great. We're doing great on time. We'll have time for the project as well. So I want to spend a little time, if I can, on the John E. Allen Heritage Quilts and the Hartsfield Family Quilt Collection, because I want to put this out there, this new research, and see what people have to think. Fact or fiction? Secret codes embedded in African American quilts. Let me catch up with my PowerPoint here. Oh, I think my battery went dead. It's okay. Okay, so Jim Thorpe has a large collection of quilts which were passed down to him from his ancestors. His name is, he's the author. His name is Jim Thorpe. And some of the quilts that he has were made by his enslaved ancestors. And in his research, he introduces additional information for consideration in the debate on slave quilts containing the hidden codes. Now, as I said, this continues to be an area that requires further exploration, but I want to put this research out here because it is new research, which we didn't have before, and they are in possession of the actual quilts. And as I was reaching it, there were some divine occurrences that were happening in my life where I was beginning to see signs and symbols. So it kind of was a sign from the ancestors to let me know that I was on the right track. Hint, hint, on the right Underground Railroad track. No pun intended. Okay, so now let's look at, so the Hartsfield family quilt collection is the other family, which spans generations, dating back to one of Jim Thorpe's. Am I getting them mixed up? Okay, we're still talking about Hartsford. So the Hartsford family quilt collection, as I said, spans generation. Those are Jim Thorpe's family's quilts, and his ancestor is Miss Molly, and she was an enslaved woman in Whitlock, Tennessee. Okay, so remember that the Hartsford family quilts, Jim Thorpe, Miss Molly, okay, was his ancestor, and she was an enslaved woman in Tennessee, and that's where they got the quilts from. On the other hand, and this is really interesting, John E. Allen is the author of a book called The Content of Their Character, which you're more than welcome to look at. It provides a detailed story behind his family's antique quilt and the history of the African-American family that made it, suggesting that quilt codes may be, arguing that quilt codes are embedded in his family's Reconstruction era quilts. This is an interesting theory because that would mean that African-American quilters continued the tradition of hiding hidden messages in their quilts after slavery during the Reconstruction era in the crazy quilts, which you may recall the Victorian crazy quilts of England. These quilts are made after the pattern of the Victorian. Somewhere embedded in John Allen's family's quilt are hidden codes, and he shows us that in his book. I challenge you to read the book. I offer this as additional fodder for the debate. Okay, I have my beliefs. I know what I believe, but beliefs aren't, we need facts. But you're not going to get facts because what I submit to you is today I'm changing the narrative for the debate because as an African people, we were an oral people. We didn't have written records. And so we're not going to authenticate our research on whether quilts were used on the Underground Railroad by any written documentation because we know there was dance, there were codes hidden in dance, there were codes hidden in music, there were codes even hidden in the martial arts. So why would it be inconceivable that codes would be hidden in fabric? Okay, food for fodder. Okay, so I'm going to quote John Allen. He says, let's catch up. He says, there is an old quilt that will be revealed in detail that can be shown to have a code having originated with the Underground Railroad. This code has been the subject of controversy for some time. The concept has been largely relegated to the trash heap of folk tales. Honestly, I want to be very candid. Some of the literature that I read or have read about whether quilts were used on the Underground Railroad is really just kind of insulting. It's like, oh, yes, it's a great story tale, but so again, we need to be respectful of the tradition and the theories, and we need more research as opposed to just dismissing these legends, these oral stories by our African griots as folklore. Okay, so there you have it. Now, I'm going to try this video. We're going to see, I really want them to see the video on the origins of quilting. How do I make that work? It's not going to work? You don't think so? Okay, great. And we can show it? Excellent, excellent. You can also Google it. It's an excellent video, and it talks about the origins of quilting in the Nile River Valley in Egypt, which we call Kemet. And it's an amazing video, factual. It shows how the people of ancient Egypt or Kemet actually were quilters. And we see it in their artifacts. We see it in the Mejunecher, which is the divine word, 12 feet deep in stone on the banks of the Nile River Valley. And so this is a very interesting video. I hope that you'll be able to see it. Okay. Here, how many people recognize this woman? Quilters? Any quilters recognize her? This is Harriet Powers. Harriet Powers was an African-American folk artist and quilter. She was born a slave in rural Northeast Georgia, where she married young and had a large family. After the American Civil War and emancipation, she and her husband became landowners by the 1880s, but lost their land due to financial problems. Powers used traditional applique techniques to make quilts that express local legends, Bible stories, and astronomical events. Only 2 of her quilts are known to have survived: the Bible quilt of 1886 and a pictorial quilt of 1898. Her quilts are considered among the finest examples of 19th century Southern quilting. Her work is on display at the National Museum of American History in Washington, D.C. If you ever come and visit, look me up and we can go together. And the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, Massachusetts. Now, Harriet Powers' story is very interesting because Harriet Powers may contain some clues for us Iowans to find out more about Iowan early American quilting traditions, because she paid a visit to Keokuk, Iowa. And I don't know much about Keokuk. I'm still doing my research, but I believe that Keokuk is an important clue in our quest to uncover the secrets to the codes, of whether they're in the quilt. Okay, so this is her quilt. Isn't it beautiful? She made this quilt in about 1886, and you can see all of the depictions of some Bible stories, as well as some major astronomical occurrences that were happening at that time. Okay, so this is another symbol, and this is the Adinkra symbol, which is a war horn, and it signifies a war cry. In the village, when danger was approaching, the elders would sound the war horn. How many of you know that the American school system is in deep trouble and that a radical change is needed if we are to turn the tides for the large number of children who are being failed by a system, not teachers, a system? My great Aunt Catherine and grandmother Geraldine devoted their lives to educating children in Iowa's public school system. It was with deep sadness I learned of the 2 students who were killed and an employee seriously injured in last month's shooting at Starts Right Educational Mentorship Program in downtown Des Moines. We need solutions, family. I'm here with good news. As I and my cohorts, who span the entire African diaspora from Africa to South America to the Caribbean, have developed proven, time-tested solutions and culturally relevant academic curricula, which meets and serves the holistic needs of little brown and Black children. Ma'at, Afrocentricity, the Nguza Saba, and the Dogon theory of learning are the 4 foundational pillars upon which the Children of the Sun curriculum silently rests. Sadly, too many of our children are marginalized victims in the preschool to prison pipeline and continue to be miseducated in an antiquated school system which over 70 years after the great historian Carter G. Woodson penned his seminal work, The Miseducation of the Negro, continues. Children of color need to see themselves as important central players in the curriculum to build self-esteem, which my Black Panther quilt does, and academic achievement. The creation of the curriculum required me to take time to do the research, roughly about 7 years. We centered the lessons in pedagogy that can be integrated into required units in schools and at home. We incorporated caregivers and we built in community engagements. Students are able to see themselves in the context of the culture and the curriculum. In addition to that, we produced an album because we learned that children of color are kinesthetic learners. They like to dance, they like rhythm, they like music. And so my children, my 7 children, and my husband, my late husband, and I recorded under the brilliant genius musical talent of a friend back home, Baba Bomani. And we created the curriculum, the album. And I wish I could play some for you, but we'll have some available on the website, some of the music. And these are our flashcards. This is the Culture Keepers Consciousness work. 10 categories. We restore all of the history, heritage, language, and culture that is missing from the historical timeline on African history. And so we are very proud of that curriculum, and my children and I want to get it out in the hands of as many people as possible. You can go to my website. I'll make those available, www.giamequilts.com and childrenofthesun.education. You can purchase the curriculum. You can give it to a friend, and you can also purchase some of my quilts. And you will also find an abundance of African-centered educational resources written by myself and some of the world's greatest ACE scholars who are in our network, including my dear friend, Egyptologist and cultural historian. He doesn't like to be called an Egyptologist, but he is in his own right. Anthony Browder and his brilliant daughter, Atlantis Browder, the brilliant scholar and Kemetic priest, Dr. Chika Aku of Clark Atlanta University, Queen Thais of the Liberated Mind Homeschool Export out of Atlanta. And the list goes on and on. Dr. Samari Kamali from Kamali Academy. And last but not least, my Jegna, Mama Deborah Watkins, the founder of ABIN, a Black Education Network, and Mama Raz, who unapologetically fight for marginalized children of color in key policy circles across California and the globe. That concludes my presentation for today. I thank you for coming out. I hope that I left you with a little bit of knowledge. And now we will have fun and engage in the hands-on project. I want to show you. I'll explain what we're going to do. This is the goal. Now, you're not going to have all of the embellishments to create a quilt, a square like this one, because I didn't bring a lot of ephemeral. But these are samples of some of the quilt squares that will go in the Freedom Quilt that our children did. And this is one that a family did. So what you're going to do is we're going to use paper, and you're going to create a quilt square using your imagination and the scraps and the supplies that I have provided. There's no right or wrong way to create it. Just start gluing it down and using your imagination. The scraps are really large. I want you to cut them up and pass them around. My brand is Scraps of Africa. What somebody would think as a piece of, no, this is valuable. This is gold. So cut them up and share, okay? Because the piece that you're going to be working with is only this big, okay? So you're more than welcome to come up. You can use the cardboard as your foundation, which is neat. We just have a couple of these. Or you can use the paper. And you're basically, now, Dennis, you might want to work with this piece right here with Black Panther. So you just might cut out the image and just glue it down and just start. If you're a quilter, you might want to do a border going around it. So it'll be a fabric postcard. Ashe, it's a collage. Thank you, Mother. All right. So feel free to, do we want to come up or do you want to pass them out, Gail? How do we want to do it for the project? Yes, you need the glue, scissors. I thought we would have some children. You won't need the crayons. So thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation and we can get started with the project.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. That was so much information.
Thank you.
I cannot wait to look at those videos. So we're going to stop the live broadcasting right now so you guys here can work on your projects. But those of you at home, I encourage you to get out the scissors and the paper and create your own quilt block. I think that would be a fantastic project for the Historical Society to do in the future. Everyone create a quilt block.
Yay.
All right, I'll try to keep that in mind. So our next Iowa Files program is on Sunday, March 19th. And a presenter from the Iowa Barn Foundation will be coming and talking about what I really see as Iowa's cathedrals, rural barns, their beauty, their usefulness, the fact they're disappearing, what you can do to preserve them. So please feel free to stay here if you are here. And thank you to the West Des Moines Library, the Friends Foundation, EMC Insurance, and members and donors. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Up the live part of it. And then
Yes.
everybody can just
Yeah,
keep
great.
going.
Yeah, great. Okay. So now we're on.